All right, so today, Chris and I jump in and we talk about a hot topic, which is artificial intelligence. We have a lot of fun with it, so you definitely have to tune in and check it out. And we would love to see and hear your comments about AI. Check it out.
After our long, extensive planning sessions, we've decided to have a conversation, just Mark and I, to get real. And today we're going to talk about AI.
Which is?
Artificial intelligence.
Oh.
Is it artificial? Is it real?
Weird.
It is weird.
It's like artificial.
Have you been on that
coloring.
Chat GPT yet?
Oh, yeah, I use it all the time.
I've been using it too.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of cool, right?
It's weird how we went from 2 months ago, 3 months ago maybe. The world didn't know what Chat GPT was.
Yeah.
And now there's like grandmas using it.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy, isn't it?
I
said just the other day.
Freaky.
I told you just the other day, I said we were looking at like writing an article for something, and I was like, write an article about rental landlords in Maryland, and then all of a sudden it just started, and it's like pulling stats from Maryland. Mm-hmm. Like, it was actually a really good article. I'm like, man, I want to read that, you know?
It's insane. It's an amazing tool. That I think is going to replace a lot of jobs. I think it's going to have a rippling effect across, our economy. I think it's going to have a rippling effect across our ability to innovate, especially.
So I want to stop you because I think there's this fear mongering, I think, that's coming on right now, like with a lot of people, and I'm not sure. It's like, Y2K, you know what I mean? Like, is this gonna be the thing that kills all these jobs and takeaways, or is it something that's gonna actually make our jobs easier or better or more practical or our lives easier?
The answer is yes.
Yeah. So you think it'll do both?
It'll do both.
Yeah, I get that. I think you're right.
I think it'll do both. I think that it's kind of like, when we first figured out how to split a nuclear atom, like, that was pretty cool, right? You know what I mean?
It was pretty cool. We figured out how to split an atom.
Right. It was like, that was pretty cool. Yeah. Look at this super cool thing that we did. But at the same time, we could also blow up, like, a huge area and leave, like, this nuclear fallout. Right. You have something that's so powerful and so cool, so dangerous at the same time.
I want to ask you, maybe you know this. I don't know. I honestly have no idea. Okay, So why did this come about now? Like, is this just data that people have been holding on to and they're putting it in a new format? Like, is this Google Plus? You know what I mean? Like, is this like, because I always like trying to understand where, like, what made this change to say this is AI? I Googled everything.
So it's funny. It just reminded me of something. So last week I was away at a coaching summit, and one of my mentors said, he's like, yeah, it's just like every other overnight success. It took 10 years.
Yeah, okay.
So I think that is applicable here. Like, it didn't come out of nowhere. This is something that's been going on for quite some time. I remember 4 or 5 years ago when they were talking about how what's his name? Zuckerberg was messing with AI in like his Facebook labs.
Oh yeah, that whole.
And they created 2 bots that could talk to each other, and they started talking to each other, and they shut it down because they created their own language that humans couldn't understand, and they couldn't tell what they were saying to each other anymore, so they had to turn it off.
Where's my aluminum foil? Right? I gotta put my.
No, it's not. I mean, it's not aluminum foil. Is like aliens. Like, this is technology, but that's crazy. That's crazy.
Is crazy.
And it's not a conspiracy theory. Like, what I just told you was there was a real event.
They created their own language. It really happened. I didn't know this.
Yes, 2 bots, okay? Zuckerberg created 2 bots, and they were taught to communicate to each other.
AI with one another, right?
And they started, and this happened like within a very short period of time. I don't know what the duration was. I don't know if it was hours or if it was minutes or seconds. But these things started talking to each other. Right, and they could see the communication, and then the communication kind of went to code.
This is a movie. This is a movie waiting to happen.
And then it went kind of like off tangent. And when it went off tangent, they were like, "We don't understand what they're saying to each other anymore," and they got freaked out and they shut it down. So that is weird. That's crazy.
Weird. You know, it's funny you say that because I read something about it and I was like, I'm going to play with it a little bit, and I decided to have a conversation with the AI. This is like 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to talk about school vouchers, right? So I was arguing for school vouchers with AI. There was no convincing AI of my opinion,
Right.
right? Like there was none. So I literally spent a good 20, 25 minutes chatting with
I was going to ask
AI.
if you were the person that turned the bot into
That's what I was trying to
Hitler.
do. No, not that. Now stop.
But that really happened too.
I know.
That was recent. It was in the news. That was probably like, 45 days ago. I forget which bot it was.
See, but I don't think you can
Some company
do that.
rolled out a bot, and essentially the person engaged with the bot, and the bot ended up starting to act like a Nazi. You know?
So I don't understand. So like, is it just gather the information, you tell it, and then it starts creating its own information based on what you tell it?
I think it depends on the technology. It depends on what the technology is built to do.
Because if it's learning, that's a different thing than if it's.
Well, it is
concept.
learning. It
Yeah.
is learning, and I think, and this is I have no knowledge on the subject. This is me being completely
Right.
speculative.
I know.
So
We're
I'm
like-
making this statement up. So, but at the end of the day, I think that what happens is it depends on like what is its depth of learning. Like, is this a baby bot?
Right.
Is this a bot that was just born?
Right, I get
That's
it.
taking note of every word that you're and holding it near and dear because it only has so much information? Or is this a bot that already has a world's worth of information and it already has the knowledge of a world? So your little message is not even going to move the needle.
So Mark, what
right?
you're saying is in 10 years, we're not going to be here. It's going to be a holograph of us.
It could be.
It could be a holograph of us, and it's just going to do it for us. So they're going to talk. The two holograms of us are going to talk to one another as AI and have complete conversations on their own.
Crazy story.
Okay, all right.
So I was in a taxi cab. Well, not a taxi cab because we don't have those anymore.
Uber.
I was in an Uber.
Yeah.
In Texas last week.
Okay.
Heading back to catch my flight. We had this crazy Uber driver that was listening to all kinds of AI podcasts. He's been up all night driving.
Yeah.
So he might have been a little
His eyes are
conspiracy-
blurred.
Yeah.
Glazed eyes. He's got-
Definitely a wild
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
But he just kept talking to us and he was telling us all about AI. And he said, one of the podcasts that I listened to, it said that in the future, we're going to receive all of our news from AI. He said they've created these AI bots that actually they basically have made them look like people. Like you really, if you were watching it, like you were watching a television,
Yeah, it looks like a
you
human
could
being.
not tell that
Right.
this is not a human.
Right.
And essentially, its voice and everything it's
Yeah.
saying and doing, like we could essentially give it your voice.
No.
Or give it my voice.
That's actually a thing I think recently.
And then it could essentially recite the news, and better yet, it can recite the news on its own. So let's just pull back for a second, okay? What you just said is not like that.
No, it's
that
not
could
absurd.
be a reality.
No, I got you.
Now, it would take a lot to program a bot to think and act from
Well,
our perspective.
It's
But
interesting.
if essentially, let's say that this microphone's connected to the bot. And let's say that you and I spent our whole lives in front of this microphone, and all we did was talk into it with
Right.
all of our thoughts and processes and
Our whole
personality.
life
all
is
that-
right there, right?
Yeah, it's right there. Then maybe that bot could replicate us, which
Wow.
is freaky, right?
Yeah, it's
So,
kind of like.
we went to a place that I did not think we were going to go.
Yeah,
when we
I
started
know.
this.
I know.
But so going back to what you said,
We always do, though. By the way,
we have to go back because we go like, ooh,
Yeah,
and then we go,
yeah.
let's reel this back in. Go back to what you say. Are we going to lose jobs? Is it going to make jobs easier? Is it going to make life easier? Yeah, I think so.
All of those things.
And the same guy that I was in the taxi cab or the Uber with,
Uber.
man, I feel like an
Yeah.
old man. I keep saying taxi cab. I was in an Uber with. He said that that I guess another podcast he was listening to said that they found it really interesting because everybody thought that AI was going to go after manufacturing jobs
Yeah.
first. And in turn, it's actually going after creative jobs.
It's so interesting.
So
I did hear that the number one business or industry that would be affected by AI, which surprised me, was legal services. Like, which I just heard that like last week. Something about that. I actually was in in DC last week for the NAR legislative conferences, and they did there was a whole session on AI and real estate, right, and how it affects us and the things we do. It's pretty interesting when you can the information. I wonder where all that data is coming from, right? Like, is it one source? You know what I mean? Like, it's such a big thing.
Well, I think
it just
that
makes me think about it.
That's going back to the difference between a bot that you could train to do something or you could have impact on.
Yeah.
That depends on who holds the keys to the bot, right?
Well, see, and that's the
So,
problem. But what you just said is
who holds the keys?
exactly the
Yeah.
problem.
Who holds-
who's
Who holds the keys owns mankind, right?
and then the question
But-
is when you turn it off, is it going through my electric wires and like that?
Well, I think so. So again, what level of information does it have access to?
You really want to date ourselves? It's like Tron.
Right.
Right? I don't know if you
It's
remember
really
that.
like iRobot.
Yeah, iRobot. Yeah, that was.
Which-
yeah, you're right. It's more like iRobot, which scares me.
You know, take artificial intelligence and then put it, attach it to something physical and then let it run rampant.
Which
and
they're
that's
doing
iRobot.
now, right? I mean, there's stuff that works.
We're
for
getting
them.
there. But going back to the 10-year success story, right?
Yeah.
So it's like boop, and we're just here.
Yeah.
We're on the
curve.
brink of the J curve, and I think that what we're going to see happen in the next 5 years will far go beyond what we've
be
seen in the
fascinating.
last 10.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see where we go with it. But to your point, newscasters,
Yeah.
people who write articles,
Right.
legal services.
Man, you're exactly right. I just the other day I went to do a new post on Facebook, and I was on Canva, right?
Right.
And they have a whole AI tool now.
Yeah.
You can go. I want to create an ad of their
And
story
it'll
was
do it.
of a waving bear on a unicycle. That's what or something
Yeah.
crazy like that. The next thing you know, you got a post of a waving bear
So guess
on a
what?
unicycle.
You don't need that person that designs
That's
ads
exactly
for you
that's going to be the problem. Yeah.
So that's and I think sucking the creativity out of humanity is a scary thing.
No, it absolutely terrifies me.
Now
That's the worst part.
Now, and I think it'll suck creativity out of humanity as we know it.
But then new creativity
The
comes.
new
around,
creativity
it's
will
gonna
like,
be different.
how much weird shit can I tell this
Yeah,
bot?
I know.
And
What am I
let's
going to
see
teach this bot to do?
Let's see what art I can create through the bot.
Well, it's funny, years ago, people would there was only paintings on walls and paintings on canvas and those sorts of things, and then it became electronic art. There's a whole thing.
NFTs.
Yeah, there's a whole thing for that, and
I think that's all a joke.
I do too. But but that's basically what these AI bots are going to be doing, right?
Well,
To some
we're going to
degree.
see. We're about to go off on a tangent as soon as I bring this up.
Shocker.
Where we're going to see those two worlds collide.
Yeah.
So right now you have this dream world where let's create our like, I don't even know what you call those, metaverse.
Yeah, the
and all that
metaverse stuff.
shit,
Yeah.
Where you go into this digital world, you hang out with people and you do stuff, kind of like a live version of
Yeah.
The Sims,
Yeah, right.
And then, we have where we're using AI in life,
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis. Those two things are going to overlap.
Yeah.
So the way of the future will be that we'll be walking around with these little
Yeah,
glasses.
with our glasses on that have little
and we're
cameras
seeing the world through
Yeah.
two perspectives at the same time.
See, Mark's body temperature is just raised. His anger level is up at 44%. And then
Yeah, you might. Yeah, that might be. That's
Yeah,
like
don't
that's
talk
like,
to Mark today. He's having a bad day.
That's like
right?
Terminator. Yeah, but we could see life essentially through those two different lenses: the virtual and the reality. So it's augmented reality. That's and we're just barely scratching the surface of that. That's the next run.
That is right. Yeah, and I read that too. That's like kind of the new thing, like the next step, if you will.
So, we've talked about a lot of the scary stuff about AI. Let's talk about some of the good things. So what do you think good is going to come out of AI?
Look, I think, honestly, the medical field is going to benefit immensely. I think because you're going to have diagnoses that are easily more identifiable. You're going to have, because AI is going to, just like I said.
Uber guy was telling me that.
I mean, I think you're going to have.
I owe a lot of credit for this podcast.
Yeah, to the
Uber guy in San
right.
Antonio, Texas, that gave me all this
Got
information.
it. He's
so.
watching today.
That's right.
Right. But no, I think I really think the big strengths are going to be in the medical field. I think, honestly, the creativity part might not be such a bad thing as long as we don't lose our own, right? Like if it's a supplement to our creativity, right?
Yeah.
Human creativity.
Right.
And then I really think the strength is going to be the medical and health and that kind of field, because I think they'll be able to, the knowledge and the information is going to be able to identify things in people that maybe we don't see as human beings, or doctors may have overlooked, or it may analyze, where a doctor can analyze the data of 1,000 points, AI can analyze the data of a quadrillion points, right?
Yeah, so going back to that, Uber guy told me that there was a study done where it was like, 10 different patients, right?
Yeah.
The same 10 different patients,
Yeah.
different symptoms. And they ran all the symptoms and the patient scenarios by a doctor.
Okay.
The doctor got it right 4 out of 10.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
AI got it 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
The
See,
diagnosis.
that's what I'm thinking is going to be the thing.
Time.
You know, and I think that's because they, again, it's the data points. Is what are they analyzing, right? Like a doctor can only see so much, and AI maybe can see it all. I'm excited about that, right? Like that prospect, because I think it could be, you know, these are the things. The question is that, you know, the next step is, does it help us? Like if you were to AI like foster world peace in the Middle East, you know what I mean, or peace in the Middle East, right? Like is AI going to be able to come up with a strategy to do that's going to work? You know what I mean? Like it's you know, there's so many things. It could,
and then it could be used for evil as well.
That's exactly right. So
that's the scary part. Let me ask you this question: how do you think that AI will impact the divide between wealthy and poverty?
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting, you know, I think we should ask AI that question.
Oh my goodness. I wish I had like Chat GPT. We should have had that queued up for this podcast so we could just pop it in there and ask it crazy stuff.
That's awesome.
Our next AI podcast, the next time we have to go into strategy session and figure out what we're going to talk about, you know, our really intense strategy session.
Yes.
Remind us, people in the back, remind us that we can just do an AI session where we just ask Chat.GPT weird stuff. So that'll be a whole episode.
You know, maybe our 3-hour planning sessions will now take 2 because we can use ChatGPT.
That's true. We should have just asked it what we should talk about.
What do we talk about today?
What do we tell the world about you, AI?
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know where we are, but I think we covered AI today.
I think we did in a good fashion. I think it'll be interesting to see where the world goes with this. And, you know, I think the human nature inherently is going to be what decides whether or not it's used for good or
evil.
For evil.
Yeah,
So,
I'm with you. I think you're right. All right, with that, sounds like a sombering note to end on AI, but with that, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
See ya.